All right, let's dive right into this. You know, for decades, if you went out and bought a truck or an SUV from legendary brands like Toyota, Honda, or GM, you bought it believing one fundamental truth. The engine was absolutely going to outlast everything else on the vehicle. Seeing 200,000 miles on the odometer? Perfectly normal. Hitting 300,000? Not even shocking. But suddenly, something has drastically shifted in the automotive world. We are currently facing a full-blown engine failure epidemic. These historically bulletproof power plants are failing at literally unprecedented rates, and we really need to understand exactly why. Which brings us to the multi-million-dollar question driving today's explainer. Why are brand new vehicles from these historically trusted brands suddenly seizing up at just 20,000 or 30,000 miles? We're seeing brand new Toyota Tundras just seizing without warning, and GM V8s destroying themselves right in the middle of the highway. And to be clear, we're not talking about a handful of isolated horror stories here, or people who just completely forgot to change their oil. No, we are looking at a systemic, industry-wide issue. Just to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of the problem we're looking at, let's look at just one manufacturer. According to federal filings, there are over 28,000 complaints tied directly to GM's V8 engine failures alone. And from that number, there are more than 14,000 confirmed, frankly terrifying incidents where drivers experienced a complete loss of power while driving. So yeah, this is a massive issue affecting everyday drivers. Section 1. Built to forgive no more. To truly understand why modern engines break so early, we have to look backward at why the old ones didn't. Think about a truck engine from the early 1990s. It had what we call layers of forgiveness. The components were this thick cast iron. The tolerances, the gaps between the moving parts, they were loose, measured in thousandths of an inch. You ran heavy, thick 10W30 oil, but the absolute most crucial detail, those old bearings had a thin layer of soft lead on the surface. If microscopic debris got into the oil, it just embedded harmlessly right into that soft lead. You could skip an oil change, run it in the blistering summer heat, and it just forgave you. Now compare that to modern engines. They are severely downsized and heavily turbocharged, generating over 2,000 psi of cylinder pressure, which is literally race car territory. The tolerances are now measured in microns. We're talking smaller than a human hair here. We're using ultra-thin oil, sometimes 0W16 or even 0W8. Actually, let's be honest, that feels a lot closer to LaCroix than actual motor oil. And the bearings? Hard aluminum with absolutely zero ability to absorb debris. We've completely engineered the forgiveness out of the system. Section 2. Brand autopsies, GM, Toyota, and Honda. Let's break down exactly how this zero-margin engineering is causing real-world catastrophes. And nobody is immune here. We have GM's 6.2-liter V8 in their flagship 2021 to 2024 tricks dealing with machining debris and rough crankshafts. Then we've got Toyota's new twin-turbo V6, the one replacing their legendary V8 in the newest Tundras and Lexus LXs, suffering from what appears to be a fundamental design flaw regarding bearing pressure. And finally, Honda's ubiquitous V6 in family haulers like the Pilot and Odyssey, falling victim to improperly machined crank pins. Let's look a little closer at each one. Starting with GM. The failure they're dealing with often results in what's called throwing a rod. If you don't know, this is a catastrophic, violently loud failure where the engine literally destroys itself from the inside out, sometimes literally punching a hole right through the solid metal engine block. This is currently affecting nearly 877,000 GM vehicles. Now, the official word is that microscopic metal debris from manufacturing combined with rough crankshafts act like sandpaper on those unforgiving modern bearings. But here is the absolute most revealing part. GM's recall fix for this quietly switched the required oil from water-thin 0W20 to a much thicker 0W40. Think about that for a second. You do not switch to an oil twice as thick to fix a debris issue. That is a quiet admission that the original super-thin oil specification never actually had the margin to protect these engines under real-world stress. Moving over to Toyota, owners and engineers are actually calling their failure the invisible killer. Why? Because on these $90,000 flagship trucks, there are no warning lights, no diagnostic codes, no strange noises whatsoever. The engine just seizes. Now, Toyota officially points the finger at machining debris from their manufacturing plants, but independent teardowns, they are showing something vastly different. They show that only the main bearings are getting destroyed, while the rod bearings, which share the exact same oil system, look perfectly fine. Think about it. If it was random debris circulating in the oil, that damage would be everywhere. The fact that it's localized heavily suggests a fundamental design issue. Basically, a bearing clearance that's simply too tight for the immense thermal load of a downsized twin-turbo engine. Now, if you thought this was just a truck problem, think again. The scale escalates massively when we look at Honda. Honda is currently facing a federal investigation involving an astounding 1.4 million vehicles. We are talking about the ultimate family vehicles here, minivans and three-row SUVs that families bought specifically for that ironclad Honda reliability. The core issue with these 1.4 million Hondas really just comes down to physics. During manufacturing, the equipment used to grind the crankshaft pins was improperly calibrated, leaving the pin with a slight convex shape, or a crown. Think of it like this. Pressing your palm flat on a table distributes the force evenly, right? But if you press down with just one knuckle, you're applying the exact same amount of force, but intensely concentrated into one tiny point of pressure. That concentrated knuckle pressure is exactly what's happening to the bearings inside these Honda engines. It easily exceeds the thermal limits of the metal, breaks down the oil, and destroys the bearing completely silently. Which naturally leaves us to step back and ask a pretty glaring question. Did the brightest engineering minds at GM, Toyota, and Honda all suddenly become incompetent overnight? Did they simply forget how to build a lasting internal combustion engine? Well, the harsh, unsettling truth is no. They definitely didn't forget. These failures are not the result of forgotten skills or sudden incompetence. They are the direct result of a calculated business decision forced upon the entire automotive industry. Section 3. The Mastermind. CFA Standards. The invisible force dictating all of this is CAFE standards. These are corporate average fuel economy regulations that set incredibly strict miles per gallon targets that a manufacturer's entire fleet of vehicles must achieve on average. To hit these strict numbers on government test cycles, the industry had to squeeze out every fractional drop of efficiency they could possibly find. That is exactly why we now have tiny turbocharged engines instead of larger, naturally aspirated ones. It's why oil is as thin as water, and why systems like start-stop technology even exist. It is not to make the engine last 200,000 miles, it's exclusively to satisfy this regulation. The absolutely crucial point here is understanding the financial gun pointed at automakers' heads. The penalty for missing these CAFE targets is a $17 fine per vehicle for every single tenth of a mile per gallon they fall short. If a manufacturer misses their fleet target by just one single MPG across 2 million vehicles, they are looking at over $300 million in fines. Automakers ran the math and realized that a predictable rate of catastrophic engine failures, warranty claims, and recall settlements was actually cheaper than paying those massive federal fines. Wild, right? And how are they handling the fallout? Often with cover-ups and stopgaps. Look at Hyundai's previous engine disaster. Their solution wasn't to redesign the broken hardware. Instead, they issued a software update, what owners dubbed the death code, that simply listens for the vibration of a failing bearing to warn you right before it catches fire. An algorithm watching a broken part isn't exactly a fix. Furthermore, when angry owners have their broken vehicles bought back under lemon laws, those deals are frequently wrapped up in strict non-disclosure agreements. The owners get paid and silenced. Worse, these buybacks are often coded as customer satisfaction transactions, meaning the vehicle gets to keep a clean title and gets resold to an unsuspecting second buyer. Section 4. Survival Guide. How to protect your engine. Look, facing a $15,000 to $20,000 engine replacement bill before your odometer even hits 50,000 miles is completely unacceptable. So here are 5 highly actionable, inexpensive steps you should take right now. First, check your VIN on nhtsa.gov to see if you have an open recall, because these failures happen with zero warning. Second, mandate 5,000-mile oil changes for yourself. Those 10,000-mile intervals in the manual, they're just marketing numbers to lower the calculated cost of ownership, not sound engineering advice. Third, disable start-stop technology permanently. Every single restart is a brief moment where your Micron-type bearings have zero oil pressure. Just turn it off. Fourth, if you have direct injection, get your intake valves professionally walnut blasted every 30,000 miles to remove airflow restricting carbon buildup. And finally, once your warranty expires, seriously consider stepping up one oil viscosity grade, like moving from 0W20 to 5W30, to give your bearings a fighting chance with a thicker film of protection. If you are currently shopping the used car market, here is a massive tip derived straight from the failure data. You need to treat any 2021 to 2024 turbocharged model from these brands with extreme caution. Honestly, an older 2016 to 2019 naturally aspirated V8 with honest highway miles on it might genuinely be a far safer financial investment right now than a shiny new turbo model running water-thin oil. Emissions rules are only getting stricter, and the engineering margin for reliability just keeps shrinking, which leaves us with this final provocative thought to consider: Have me, as consumers, permanently traded away that legendary long-term reliability we used to love just so manufacturers can hit short-term government efficiency metrics? The data certainly points that way, and it's absolutely something every single vehicle buyer needs to think about before they sign on the dotted line. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.